Well, good morning. It's been a while, hasn't it? Happy New Year. Oh, my voice is going. Not ideal. Today's just a climb video. Truth be told, this is the driest it's been so far this morning. I'm not having loads of fun. It's the first time I've been outdoors for a while. I'm on my trusty Boardman. This is my piss gate. I always stop here for a wee. And today I'm going to ride up a local climb called the Steps. So I'll tell you more about it on the voiceover because I need something to talk about. But basically, it's quite long, but it's a very pitched climb. There's a reason it's called the Steps. And the reason I'm doing that today is that there's no way I'd ever be setting any PRs up local hills in the state. Well, the state of my bike, rubbing mud guards. I've had a headwind all the way here. Frankly, I'm really not having any fun. I wish I'd stayed inside. I wish I was doing the tiny races with the Burrito Titans this morning. But I want to focus on a weakness of mine, which is keeping power consistent on variable gradient, which is hard. So I'm going to go and do the Steps because it's relatively long. Gradient varies an awful lot. And I think I'll be quite slow up it, but I want to basically just hold threshold no matter what. So normally I do like 400 watts up the pitches and 100 watts to recover on the flats. And I've set a decent time up there with that approach. 100 watts is silly, obviously. I try on the flats, but it's well below threshold. So today I'm just going to try and hold, I don't know, between 300 and 330 watts the whole way. Try and make it very steady. So we'll see how I go. Welcome to the Steps. They've come up so many times in videos I've done previously for reasons that I'll get into, but I've never actually done a video of them, and it's a horrible day, so here you go. This is the climb profile. As you can see, 5 and a bit kilometres, it's only 3% average. The leaderboard is really a who's who of top cyclists around here. Rumour has it, a bit like Wigo used to have the unofficial Sacalobra KOM, I don't know if that's still the case, but I believe Steve Cummings in the pre-Strava days, our local World Tour cyclist, was the man on the Steps. But you know, pre-Strava probably didn't count. I still wouldn't want to go head-to-head with Steve up here. The Steps starts very sedately, as you can tell. It almost looks flat. My barometer, it's just never going to work on a rainy day like this, unfortunately. I believe from the profile this is actually like maybe 1 or 2%. It's very much false flat all the way. You can see kind of with the power I'm doing around 300 watts to sustain not quite 20 miles an hour, so around 30 kilometers an hour. I must be going a bit uphill. But already this is not my sort of climb, as you may be able to tell. It's really more of a time trial. It's not technical at this point. It's just through the river valley. And back in my day, old timer I know, but pre-Strava, we would never have counted this as part of the Steps. There's a part where you take a left turn and it really rears up. And that's where our old club runs would say the hill started. But the Strava segment says here, so who am I to question it? If you're wondering where I am geographically, I'm sure you're not, but give or take, I'm in a suburb of Wrexham, just in the hills above Wrexham. Wrexham's the biggest settlement in North Wales. It's neither nice nor horrible, it's just a city now, a small city. It was a big town. But you get up into the hills from here, out of the suburbs, quite readily. And this finishes in Llandegla, which a lot of people may know in the northwest as a mountain biking centre, so it comes up around there. So there's the pub, the Frood? Yeah, Frood. And this is where the hill starts. I didn't really talk about it, but it's called the Steps for a reason, and that's because it's intermittent, false flat, and proper hill. And this is the first step that I'm going up now. And I think the rear view camera will help a lot more in showing the difference in gradient between the Steps and the false flats, because sometimes it's not that clear on the front-facing camera. So, as I said in my little roadside intro, for me today the aim isn't to get a PB. My PB up here is
good but not great. I'm not shouting about being 25th on this leaderboard, but I did 340 watts for the entire duration, which is decent for me. But I'm trying to not do like 400 watt punches up here, because I know then I have to go well below threshold on the false flats and recover. And my target is to just keep the power rolling over today. So you can see I've just completed the first step, and this bit feels much steadier to sit down and spin and almost recover. If you're thinking, wow, this is not a picturesque climb, you're not wrong. It's beloved around here in that it's relatively close to where a lot of local clubs meet. It's relatively accessible in that no matter what ability ride you're on, everyone can complete this climb. There's never a worry about people getting up it. You just all do your own pace. And it's a good place to come and kind of test yourself, because it's a great benchmark climb. But it's not especially beautiful. And there's a reason I've done it on a horrible day, because if I went and, I don't know, did the old bulk again, all that view would be lost in the clouds. But there is no view on this road, so do it in the rain. Why not? So that took quite a lot of effort mentally there for me to keep that punch ticking over, but to not go too hard. And thankfully they've resurfaced this next bit. So as I rear up again for the next step, as you see the cars coming down, it's all about not getting carried away with my power. So far, I'm quite happy, but in my head, I'm sort of bracing myself for knowing I'll do a little crest here, false flat, and then is the biggest challenge of all. There's this block in the middle. In fact, you can see on my Garmin climb profile there that there's this block in the middle where there's actually proper gradient. And that'll really be decision point for me. It'll be what defines whether I maintain my plan for this entire climb, or whether I go too hard and need to recover after it, in which case I'll have messed up, to be honest with you. So far I hadn't been out the saddle. You can tell I've just got out the saddle because the handlebars rock so much more, and then I've forced myself to sit back down, because getting out the saddle for me is like shorthand for you're gonna overdo it. So I'm already going a little too easy on this step. Now, I wanted to be doing at least sweet spot. Sweet spot's such a vague term, isn't it? But really around kind of threshold. So I wanted to be doing 300 watts plus all the time. Every time we see me go below 300 watts, that's a failure. I'm on my winter bike. The changing is not crisp. So to an extent, I'm struggling. When it goes properly flat, I just spin out. That's an excuse though. But on my summer bike, I like to think I wouldn't be doing that. And here you go, up the steepest bit of the steps, this little chicane where it gets quite steep. Quite often I end up holding up cars here because it's like back-to-back corners. I slow right down, but I'm also unapologetically using the whole road. And what little view there is on this climb comes in the rear view camera behind me here. So the steps, more generally, it leads out to World's End and onwards to Llangollen and stuff. It's one you'd come up, it's one you'd come down. It's like the old guards club run when you just want to go to a cafe. Come and do this climb to make it worthwhile. So it's maybe one of the climbs I know best in the entire area, and to an extent it's a bit boring because of that. I certainly don't get excited about, oh, let's go and do the steps today, but there's something that we know so well that you can kind of enjoy that familiarity as well, even though it's not the nicest of roads. So you see there that I decided to muscle over that, and I know I get a bit of stick for using low cadence to get up climbs on these videos, but even for this that I'm trying to flat pace, I'm a bit unapologetic about I will use low cadence out the saddle, even if I'm just keeping the power at threshold, give or take, when it gets steep, because it means that you don't have to faff around with too much gear changing when you come over the top and you want to keep your power down. So there was a small recovery there, as you may have seen, and up to another step. And then from this point on, the steps become less defined, and it's much more just like fluctuating 3 to 6% gradient. I was struggling there because obviously I had the steep section in my legs, but I'm quite happy. At this point, I knew I was well past halfway of the challenging bit, So I thought, I can put more power down. I can't cook myself, but I don't have to try and stick around that 300 to 330 mark if I don't want. I can keep pushing, try and go a little bit faster. Now, to be a bit philosophical as I ride this boring bit, at the end of this video, I'm a bit disappointed with my time, or I say it's a bit slow, and then I say that's why you shouldn't flat pace an undulating climb. And in hindsight, I really regret saying that. What I should have said is that's why I shouldn't flat pace an undulating climb. As I keep trying to get across in these videos, and I think more and more something I'm going to try and emphasise is that what works for me may not be what works for you. And for some people, you may get your fastest time, even up here, using a flat pacing. For me, that isn't best. The best trade-off I can do is to punch relatively high in VO2. I've got quite good recovery, I think, so I can VO2 punch, recover on each of these steps, and I'll get faster. But for someone who's more of a thoroughbred time trialer, that won't be the case, so I'm a bit annoyed that I said that at the end. It's something all of cycling world needs to do less often, is assume that what works for them is what works for everyone, or in their experience what works for them is what works for everyone. Not necessarily the case at all. Another whinge about my barometer. This is definitely not minus 1% on the road here. Definitely still going uphill. So I'd be interested to know if you guys have similar climbs around you that, you know, they're not glamorous and you're not going to be saying to everyone, oh, you've got to come and do this climb, it's well worth doing, but they're like your benchmark climb, they're like your local that you're almost complacent about, but you do enjoy. Because I think there's a lot to be said for them. I've started on this channel doing all the glamorous climbs that I have to trek out to, but really, it's climbs like this and the Green and Harden Hill, all of which I will feature at some point or other on this channel. Because I think they make an area great to cycle. There's lots of areas that have really impressive, glamorous climbs, but no other roads to go up. So, you know, like a lot of national parks in the UK, alright, you've got this amazing climb, but that's your only option, and that's a bit rubbish. Whereas having loads and loads, even though they're a bit less appealing, keeps the cycling exciting, in my opinion. So, that waffle aside, really trying to fill air there, guys. I'm coming up to the top now of what I originally would have considered the steps. Like I say, rambling like an old timer, but just there's an actual descent here. This isn't false flat. This is like -1, -2, and then we kick up this final section here. And you come to a crossroads with a house on it, and that was traditionally where we would meet to regroup as a club. So regularly, in fact, that on a hot day, sometimes the owner of the house would come out and offer to refill our bottles, which was very kind of them. I don't know if it's still the same person. But that doesn't matter, because one, I never stop there anymore, because it's not where the Strava segment ends, and two, most of the time I'm riding it looks like this. There's really no risk of me needing to refill my bottles. So normally, as I sort of come around this corner, what you can see ahead of me is World's End Moor. I've got a video of me climbing up the reverse side of that last year, around this time last year, but normally you can do sort of the forward side. It's completely concealed by fog, absolutely covered, and it's really not that far away. It's normally right in front of me. So yeah, I wasn't having loads of fun on this ride, truth be told, but it was nice to have something to focus on. I think my power is a little bit out of sync, and this is where it became really challenging for me, is that there's a relatively long descent that's still part of the climb. So I was focusing on putting as much power down as I could. It was never going to be 300 watts, even as I clicked through all my gears, just because it is it's a decent descent, but also it's wiggly. I'm on my winter bike. I think the tyres and everything are fine, but when the road is this wet, and as you can see, it's a relatively main road, it does get slicks on it. So I was just thinking, don't do 40 miles an hour down here. Just make sure you get home. And there, at the bottom of this descent, is now the final step. It is pretty evil, little sting in the tail of this climb. And generally I would freewheel down the descent, just like tuck in and freewheel as fast as I could, and then I would punch all the way up here. And at this point I was using the excuse of, oh well, I'm trying to do it steady, to rationalise why I'm so bloody slow. The truth is, I did not have punch. I would really, I'd top cat that. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the top cat approach to hill climbs, but that's hit the bottom, hit it hard. Like, it looks like Tony's doing about 3,000 watts for 20 seconds, and then sit down and just keep pushing. That's normally what I would do up here, because you can see the top very nearby. But you can see my power's so up and down. Partly that's because I'm using my left-sided power meter, sorry. But partly it's because I just can't sustain a steady cadence. I'm not sure what gear to be in. So yeah, it's a bit of a inauspicious finish to a decent climb. But it was quite fun to try it very differently and to get a feel for some different physiology. So I hope you've enjoyed the steps. You can see I did 14:05, which is fairly down on my best, but good flat profile for the power. And you can see in the comparison, basically I just lose time on the steep bits. So entirely expected, and mission accomplished really. Can't complain about that, that's what I've set out to do. So as predicted, the time was fairly dire. Now I don't know if that's, well, the headwind won't have been helping. Bike's a bit heavier, it's much less aero with these mud guards on and stuff, but I suspect the main reason is flat pacing. That's why I don't flat pace, especially a climb like that. It's just objectively slower. Particularly that end bit, I really tried to keep the power down on the descent, and I got almost no faster than my PR where I know I freewheeled. I got up to speed and then I just freewheeled and got on the drops and tucked as hard as I could. But putting that power down on that descent absolutely cooked me for the final little kick, as you'll have seen. I really struggled, whereas if I'd have freewheeled and recovered, I'd have been able to punch there. So definitely a lesson in not flat pacing climbs like that, unless you're a world-class 20-minute sort of rider. I think I'm happy with how I did. I made a conscious effort to keep the power high. I'm on my left-sided power meter today because it's my winter bike. I don't know how precise it'll be, but hopefully it'll give us a good idea. I think I'm just going to go home now. It's absolutely horrible. If you can see the hill behind me, that's called World's End. I was going to go over there, but it's like a pretty high point. It'll be horrible. So yeah, I think I'll head back. And because I feel bad that I've not uploaded a video for a while, here's Denall Lane. 0.75 kilometres, 5.5%, and basically my final hill before home. It's not especially interesting again, it's one for some bonus footage here, but it comes from the River Dee marsh up to the sandstone ridge that runs along the Wirral where I live. It's a meaningful climb to me, despite being completely unremarkable, because when I was a junior, I used to struggle to even get up this. I know it seems completely insignificant to most of us, and that gradient you can see or not see on the camera now is kind of all the gradient there is all the way up, but it felt monumental when I started getting up it in decent times. And when I was a junior, like, there were rumours of people who could do it in 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes, and I just thought that was superhuman. And so I just came and rode it, and I rode it, and I rode it, and then I could do it in less than 2 minutes, and it was a bit of a, you know, a lesson in practice making perfect. And as such, I've made it like my life's mission that no matter what, I'm never riding this climb in over 2 minutes. Now I know that sounds silly, say if I were to be on a Zone 2 ride, doing a full punch up here would be stupid, so I just don't come this way if I'm on a Zone 2 ride. Basically, this is my way back from Wales, and even when I'm really, really tired, got nothing in the legs, I punch up this. And even at the end of my 360k ride last year, I did this hill pretty quickly. The view behind's actually quite nice as you climb up. You see the view over the River Dee, over the Dee Valley and back to Wales, and it is a pretty enjoyable climb. The gradient varies a little bit, so this part I'm on now is the final relatively steep section, and all of my tactics on this hill revolve around having as much to give as possible here. So I try and start hard. If I'm fresh, I should be doing 500-ish watts all the way up here. I'm obviously not fresh. And then as you get over this crest, I just need to push to the end and really give it everything I've got. Wave to the bus driver having a wee on the left. That's Den All Lane.